Hello and welcome to the show. This week on Will It Roll we're going to be rolling hybrid and electric cars. Now I don't want this to turn into a big argument about how useless hybrid and that sort of cars are. As much as I love cars and I've loved cars for all of my life, I am very well aware that in the near future we're going to have to start going away from petrol and find an alternative, because we are going to run out of oil, but simply as well as all the environment damage, we're going to run out of oil, or what oil there is going to be so expensive that it is kind of impractical to run your car on it. Of course, I'm sure normal engine cars will stay around. They'll sort of become kind of weekend cars when you can afford a little bit of petrol, but we're going to have to change. However, these two systems aren't really the solution, at least not yet. Electric cars don't have the range, really. I think there is a new Tesla that can go quite a long way, but the Leaf that we have here in Forza, and there's a BMW that's just been announced, and the normal Tesla Roadster only get about 100 miles at best. And with the exception of the Tesla, that is basically a Lotus Elise, these electric cars are hideously ugly. Like, there must be special effort to make them look as atrocious as they do, and they're incredibly expensive as well. You know, you're sort of looking like £30,000 for a Nissan Leaf. For that sort of money, even if you take off sort of the government grant money you can get on them, you'd still be able to get a M3 probably and afford the petrol to drive it for a while until it eventually blows up. You know, that's the way to go, in my opinion. And as far as hybrid cars go, you know, the Chevy Volt and the equivalents elsewhere is actually an alright car. However, you know, your Prius and your Lexus, they're just not that exciting. And in the Prius case, it's hideously ugly again. The Lexus isn't fantastic. You know, I don't know why when you're making a hybrid-y electric-y car, you should make it look desirable, not make it look stupid. I mean, Tesla can fit all the batteries in their little Elise car. You can't really use that as an excuse for the Nissan Leaf. Now, as far as rolling goes, let's forget the argument about these cars and about energy and power systems. Let's just talk about rolling the vehicles, because that's what you're all here to see. As far as rolling this Nissan Leaf goes, you will not roll this thing standard. Not off a curb, you won't. Because it is too slow. It is very slow, very boring to drive, and has incredibly soft suspension. You're just not going to be able to roll it. I mean, of course, admittedly, this isn't designed to be a fast car. It's designed to be used on a track. I don't think the word sport was used ever when they were designing this thing. You're not going to roll it standard. The suspension's far too soft and it's far too slow to kind of ever roll. So it is to the upgrade shop for the Leaf. Now, I was expecting to have to use kind of motor and battery parts or whatever on earth they call it on these electric cars. However, for now, I was just going with suspension. So this is a raised and stiffened suspension, and I am using negative camber. Now, I know you guys at home are going to be thinking, why on earth are you doing that? Surely positive camber would be a better idea. Yeah, I thought that as well. However, it isn't, and I'll get to that in a bit later, and I'll show you a bit later. As I was going through, sort of driving this car, it took a fair bit of time. But you can see I may have scraped the wall there before I got to the corner. I should have looked where I was going. It was starting to get onto two wheels, which surprised me considering how slow this car is. It's one of the slowest cars that we've had here, with the possible exception of the Beetle. And after a little while, it eventually fell over, and there's a Leaf tumbling. Isn't that a fantastic sight? And there we go. So I managed to roll a Nissan Leaf with just suspension upgrades. I'm pretty impressed with that. I wasn't expecting to be saying that. I was expecting to have to do an awful lot of upgrades to get this thing to any sort of speed to actually make it possible to roll, but there we go. The Leaf has rolled, and it didn't actually take quite as long as I was expecting either. Now, up next is possibly the one good electric car that there is, the Tesla Roadster. Admittedly, it is quite expensive, but it is actually pretty good. It's a A-class car. It's actually rather fast. As you can see, I was having it kind of caught me out on the first attempt. I then kind of bumped into the wall. Now, as far as rolling this one goes, it's actually very tricky, much like we had with the Buick a couple of episodes ago now. You kind of get it onto its side and it looks like it's going to roll, and then it catches on something. I'm guessing, again, I think it's the side skirts on this one. As you sort of attack the curb, it will go onto its side, and then there'll be the sound of bodywork scraping, and then the car will fall down again. You're probably not going to be able to hear very much, because you're not going to hear anything because they're blooming electric. But yeah, me talking over it as well, it's very quiet. We have a look at here at the sort of the slow-mo. It's very hard to kind of film this, because the cameras can never go in the right place to kind of show properly. But the side skirts get very close to the floor, and if it isn't the actual side skirt catching on the thing, I would guess it would probably be the hitbox, if you want to call it, around there, that's causing the issue. Like someone said with a Buick, that's probably what it is. the hitbox is slightly the wrong shape around there. However, it was again to the upgrade shop with this car. Suspension was stiffened and raised. Didn't have to worry about camber. Certainly weren't going to worry about engine parts because this is a rather battery parts or motor parts. It's a rather fast car. And first attempt, it has rolled, and it's a rather spectacular roll, bounced off the fence and landed on its wheels again. I'm going to apologise now if I get motor and battery and engine all confused, because, yeah, when I'm talking about cars, I talk about engines, not about motors. If I'm talking about remote control cars, then I'm talking about motors. But, yeah, I'm going to get confused with this. So, as far as rolling the Tesla goes, I was fairly surprised that that was so straightforward. It is essentially a sports car. I'm pretty sure it's based on an Elise chassis. So, yeah, it's a small, low, fairly wide car. I'm amazed that it rolled so straightforwardly. Up next, we have the Lexus CT200H, I think. I think that's the correct name for it. Again, slow and soft suspension make this thing an absolute nightmare trying to roll. With all of these cars, it's pretty much the same story. You won't roll them standard. Maybe handbrake on the grass, might if you could get them up to any sort of speed, but you're certainly not going to roll them off a curb. I tried for about 5 minutes with all of these cars, and you can tell that it is never going to roll. I could have attacked that curb a million times, and I don't think I'd ever have rolled the Lexus. I might have eventually got bored and tried to fling it off a wall somewhere, but no, you won't roll it off a curb. So, it was to the upgrade shop yet again. Suspension, normal upgrades, we got into that, and I put some negative camber on this car again. Makes them look rather silly, but it is very effective at making them roll. This is the first attempt with all of the upgraded suspension, and sure enough, the Lexus fell over straight away and landed on its roof. I love how, I don't know what sort of speed that was, but that's probably sort of 40 or 50 miles an hour onto its roof and into the wall, and the only damage I got was some slightly scratched paint. I took all the paint off the front of the car but didn't do any damage to anything else. Okay. I wish there'd be a proper damage model in normal racing games, not just in the likes of rigs of rods and that sort of thing. And anyway, we move on to everybody's favourite car in the world. It's the amazing Toyota Prius, and there is much sarcasm in there. Again, rolling, you can forget it. It's just all of these cars, too slow and terrible suspension. I sort of messed about and doing some handbrake sliding in a Prius. I don't think, has anybody handbraked a Prius in real life? Well, I'm sure somebody would have done, but it's not a usual sight. You can see it's never going to roll. I was actually trying more off the second curb here. The Prius was more likely to roll kind of off that bit. And then I almost lost control. I didn't lose control of the Prius. That would be embarrassing if I'd crashed that. Yeah. This car was, again, it is atrocious trying to roll these things. But off this second curb, I was getting more air time, I guess you could say, of that one. But no, it's not going to work. And we'll finish with a nice handbrakey slide. Oh dear. Anyway, upgrade shop, you know the drill. This time I didn't put the camber on. I was going to try without using the camber. I was beginning to regret that fairly early on, as it didn't look like it was going to kind of roll like that. I can't tell why the camber causes them to roll. It, like, logical reasoning doesn't really make sense as to why that was causing it to do that. I tried for a while with this car. This is probably the longest of all of them trying to get to roll. If I'd stuck the camber on, it probably would have gone fairly quickly. But yeah, even with upgraded suspension, it was rather a pain. However, of course, I was persistent, and eventually, it was a pretty abysmal roll, but never mind, the Prius is on its roof. Not the most spectacular we've ever had, but there we go. I'm sure many of you will be pleased to see this sight. So yes, the Prius has rolled. Now, as I said before, with this camber, we're going to have a look and try and... I can't explain why because I don't know why, but I will now show you why it is that I'm using negative camber on all of these cars. And I'm going to use a Chevy Volt, actually one of the few hybrids that I kind of don't mind, along with the Fisker Karma, which is very cool, but insanely expensive. Now, this should be a rather hard car to roll. It's the lowest of all the cars that we have here, with the possible exception of the Tesla. I didn't look. So this again got suspension as is raised and stiffened, and you can see there it didn't really look very interested in rolling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 runs, 3 with the suspension like this, 3 with positive camber, which should in theory be easy to roll, and 3 with negative camber, which shouldn't be easy to roll but actually is. So as you can see with the standard, with the raised suspension I should say, it's just not doing anything. It's barely lifting a wheel off the ground. Now, to keep things all fair, to keep this as a fair a test as possible, for each time I was starting the car right back in that far corner that you saw at the very start of the Chevy Volt bit, to make sure that I had the same speed every time I attacked the curb. Now, the only slight sort of variation would be the line that I take into the corner could vary a little bit because I am not a robot. I try my best to kind of aim for the same point, but it's possible that I got it a little bit wrong on different runs, which is why I'm doing 3 runs to try and even it out. You can see with positive camber, this in theory should be the easiest one to make it roll. It's got the smallest tyre contact patch to the road. Also, when you do get it on 2 wheels, there should be even smaller contact patch with the road. It just wasn't doing much difference, and that barely looks any different to the standard one, except for the wheels look stupid and broken. So we go for the negative camber now, and this should be the hardest of all to roll, I would have thought, because you've got the biggest contact patch to the road, you've got the biggest amount of grip, and the most of the tyre is on the road, even when it goes on its side. But it doesn't make sense, because you saw there, first attempt, that was the closest to rolling it had been all filming session, if you like. Second attempt, and I may have missed the curb a little bit, so my driving error came into that one. Yeah, the reasoning off the second curb, even it got onto 2 wheels, I can't explain to you why it does this, and I think physics wise it probably shouldn't work. It's just something that Forza decides. And sure enough, on the third attempt the Volt fell over. Yeah, I can't tell you why. However, lots of negative camber not only looks stupid, but it also makes your car roll. So there we go. We have been scientific while rolling cars. What more could you possibly want? And we've rolled a Prius and a Leaf. It's the perfect video. I probably shouldn't say that, but never mind. I will leave you with a shot of the Volt on its roof. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As ever, if you have themes or particular challenges, then please do leave them in the comment section. Also, try and make them a little bit of a challenge. You know, saying roll in GTA 4, well, that's really rather easy. I will do that when everybody does that while playing the game normally. So if I don't mind doing will it roll in other games. I like doing will it roll in other games, but at least make it a bit of a challenge because yeah, some games are very, very straightforward. Also, preferably be a game that's kind of possible to roll, not like World of Tanks where it doesn't work at all. But there we go. That is it. So until next time, goodbye.